Okay, I noticed that the on-air light has come on, so I'm going to call the meeting to order for Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. Let's do the pledge and then we'll go from there. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Better. Thank you. Long couple days.
We do have name plackets up front of us that identify who we are. So I'm going to skip the introduction of board members. So, did everyone get a chance to read the finding of facts? Because what I committed to is, if we hadn't, because Grady was feeling a little under the weather this week, so they didn't come in as timely a fashion as we might have liked. So if everyone needed an opportunity to read them, I was going to give everyone the opportunity before we basically started the meeting. But if everyone has had a chance to look at them, we will forge ahead. I think we're all set there then. Okay. We do have the minutes from October 15th on the agenda. That were printed up. Everyone, I think, had a chance to look at those. Any questions or concerns with the meeting minutes of October 15th?
No question.
All set? All right. How about a motion to approve the minutes of October 15th?
So moved.
We have a second? We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of October 15th. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 4-0. So that gets that done. James, I will get over and sign the last minutes too. I just remembered that I haven't had a chance to do that yet. Maybe I can do them both at the same time now. Okay. We are now at the point of the finding of facts from the meeting that we had on the 15th that was carried over from May 28th. I believe, are we ready to take a vote? Is that where we're at?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So Grady Burns, town attorney from Bernstein Sure. So what you have in front of you are from your authorization last week to have me work up draft findings based on your discussions after you held the public hearing. What you have in front of you are draft findings that are intended to do just that, reflecting the majorities, or I guess the working majority's discussion of where you fell on the facts and issues here. So again, a couple things to note. First and foremost, it's you, the board, who are going to be rendering a decision in this case. You've asked me to assist you in drafting findings for you, to assist in doing that. You have the power to alter, amend, remove, completely disregard this draft. This is your document. So if you have any questions, any concerns about any of the language or any items that you would like to discuss, happy to do so. I do have my laptop here in the event that any minor edits are found, but to the extent that there are more significant changes, or the board is still technically undertaking discussion right now as well. So if there are other items that you would like to discuss as you work through, you're entitled to do that. That said, if things look, if in the members' view the draft decision reflects, where you're at, then the next step would be to vote to formally approve or deny the appeal, and to adopt a set of written findings reflecting that denial. So you can, I guess, I would tackle the written decision first to see if that's where folks are at. And then if you need any assistance with kind of walking through the voting process, happy to do that as well.
Okay, sounds reasonable. Does the board have any questions about anything that is been put on the finding of facts? Or that they have been the draft finding of facts? The only one question I had, and it really isn't concerning the facts per se, is in the past, I think we've just voted the board chair to sign the finding of facts, just so that everyone doesn't have to come in and do that. Is that something that would be okay?
Absolutely, yeah. So if that was the board's desire, what I would recommend you do then is if that's how the board wants to do it, I will just change up the signing here and insert a small paragraph that reflects that the board took a motion to authorize the chair to sign this decision on the board's behalf. The substance of the draft would not change beyond that. So there would be one more motion in that event. So I would say it's the first one would be to adopt the findings and conclusions with that amendment, or subject to that amendment, and then vote to authorize you to sign that draft on the board's behalf, and then formally voting to approve or deny the application once you've adopted those findings.
Like I say, that's the way we've done it in the past. Does the board want to come in and individually sign, or do you want to give me the authority to do that so that you don't have to? It's really up to you.
I make a motion to give Mr. Ingalls the authority to sign independently.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second that once we formalize the finding of facts, I will have the authority to sign. All in favor? Okay, I don't think that was quite the order you gave us, but I think that gets us at least started in the right direction.
We'll get there.
Yes. Knowing that Grady's going to put that paragraph in that we just made that motion, does anyone have any further comments to the finding of facts that have been presented? I think that's what you said was the next thing to do.
That's right.
Are we okay with the way they're written?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's have a motion to approve the finding of facts as presented, as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Here we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. So now we get down to actually coming to some conclusion on the hearing that we've had. If you go to page 5 of the finding of facts, it says, based on this foregoing reasons, a vote of blank has been made. So what do we want to do? Is the board comfortable with that we've reached a decision from the last meeting and prepared to make a motion at this time?
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion? To accept or deny the appeal?
Okay. I make a motion that we deny the appeal from the streamlined structures.
Got a motion to deny. Do I have a second? I have a second. There's a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion or comment? I'm going to call for a vote. I believe this is going to be a split vote, so probably the best way to do it is just to have everyone vote separately. So Pat, what is your,
I vote to deny.
Ernie?
I vote to deny.
Ashton?
That's my vote to approve.
and I vote to deny. So the appeal has been denied by a vote of 3-1. And the finding of facts will reflect that.
Yes, so the findings will reflect the board's vote. They'll note, Ashton, excuse me, member, I forgot your last name. They'll note that Ashton was the dissenting vote in the 3-1 vote denying the appeal. And the findings will be identical except for a paragraph indicating the board's unanimous vote to authorize the chair to sign this decision on the board's behalf, and then a single signature line for you, Mr. Chair.
And could you make that Russell instead of Rick?
Absolutely. Russell?
Correct.
Perfect.
That concludes the finding of facts on the agenda. Now we're going to move to the two appeals that we weren't able to hear on the 15th due to the time constraint that I placed on the meeting so that it wouldn't go too late. I guess I will look to Mr. Savisky to which one would you like to address now? I think we talked about addressing the Meadows appeal in conjunction with the appeal from Streamline. Is that true?
Have a quick consultation with both my clients here, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Why don't we stick on the same theme on this?
Sure, yes.
Is this on? Can you hear me? Why don't we stay on the same theme of administrative appeals involving section 7.21 and move to the West Meadows Lane matter.
So noted.
We do have a visual aid for this one as well, if we could utilize that
James
screen.
will. Thank you, James.
Thanks, James.
It's being hard to get along with.
Oh, it was?
I think so.
Yeah. Go to sleep? There we go. All right. Thanks, everyone. Great to be back. My name's Joe Savitsky. I'm an attorney at Perkins Thompson. You probably know that already. But here tonight on behalf of Appellant Anderson Merrifield LLC regarding an issue that is familiar to the board already. But it's the same provision in the ordinance, but completely different factual circumstances. So bear with me here. I'll get the board oriented, and some of what you hear might be repetitive, but I think for purposes of completing the record, completing the record, there might be some overlap with the prior appeal. So here is the property in question. So here's the lot that the client is, appellants are seeking to develop. Just a single-family home here, conforming lot. That's a piece of this larger lot here. There was, let me go through the timeline here. This is just to get you oriented. This is West Meadows Lane, which remind me the name of the
Hubbard Road?
Hubbard Road, yeah.
Hubbard,
Road,
that
yeah.
connects to Hubbard Road. All right, here's this. I'm going to come back to this, but let me just go through the sort of the timeline relevant to this particular appeal. So there was an existing home that's been on this, call it the mother parcel, since 1930. In 2016, the town approved a single-family home on what's known as Lot 14-4. In 2017, in connection with some additional development proposed on the land, our clients hired engineer to build out West Meadows Lane, make sure it met then current town road standards. The engineers determined that it did meet those standards, and after that determination had been made, 3 more single-family homes have been built on West Meadows Lane. 2018, there was a town-approved a single-family residence on 14-1. I'll go back to the map to point these all out. 2021, another single-family home approved on Lot 14-2. And just earlier this year, the town approved yet another single-family home on 14-3. So these houses are all. So 14-1. I'll be out here, Charlotte.
It's up on top.
14-1. 14-4. 14-3. Here's 14-2. All right, here's the ordinance provision in question. All right, we all know it. It's section 7.21 in the land use ordinance. All it is a chart followed by some explanatory text. There's no narrative portion at the beginning of the standard that would suggest the circumstances in which this particular provision applies, and that's one of the reasons why we think it does not apply to circumstances like this, to existing roads that have already been developed. I'm just going to pull up a bigger copy of it here. All right. So it's just a chart. It says access to lots. You've got different standards for the number of dwelling units, and it doesn't say whether or not this applies to new or existing roads. It just says one dwelling unit. The standard is 12 feet wide, 15 feet deep of bank run gravel, and a reference to a note below. Then the next row, 2 dwelling units, 15 feet wide, 15 inches of deep of bank run gravel. Another reference to a note below. Both of those require a 50-foot right-of-way. That's not an issue here. There's a 50-foot right-of-way. And then 3 or more dwelling units. It refers to the town of Berwick road construction standards. The note below says, drainage ditches and culverts shall be installed at appropriate points as determined by the town of Berwick or third-party engineer hired by the town at the applicant's expense. Notable that that's the only place in the table that uses the word shall, as in implying a mandatory requirement that the applicant must meet. Access to lots refers to any streets, roads, or right-of-ways utilized to access the lot. So again, there's no definition of access to lots. It's not a defined term in the ordinance. It's relegated to an explanatory note here on the table, what that term might mean. There's no explanatory text in this provision saying that this is a requirement that applies to new and existing roads. That's all it says in as far as the table goes. So if you refer to the town of Berwick road construction standards, they're clearly intended to apply to roads, to new roads, or improvements to existing roads that are intended to be offered to the town to be accepted as townways. And that makes perfect sense that the town would not want to accept ownership of something that is not built to its road construction standards. Like the Streamline appeal, it's the same situation here. It's a private road. There's no intent on the part of the applicant to offer it to the town for acceptance as a townway, and clearly if it did, I'm sure you would have no issue building it to the standards the town would require if you're going to make such an offer to the town. That's not the intent. So, again, the opening paragraph to the town of Berwick's road construction standards reads, for a private road to be upgraded for submission to the voters for acceptance as a townway, or for a new road to be constructed for submission to the voters for acceptance as a townway, the following minimum standards listed below must be met. So it says right there, the intent of the road construction standards only applies in those circumstances. If you go to the minimum standards, one of them notably is the subject road must be conveyed to the town via a warranty deed. It's clearly further evidence to me of the intent of the road construction standards being applicable only in the circumstances where the town wants to or is potentially being asked to accept ownership of the road being built. Not a requirement that can be retroactively imposed on an existing road, which we have here, which the town already approved as recently as 2017 that it met the standards at that time. And here you've got a road already with 3 lots with frontage and access deriving from West Meadows Lane. There's further evidence. If you refer back to 721, in the text below the table, if the development is located in the R2, R3, or AP zone, dead-end streets shall remain private until connectivity to other streets may occur. Here, we've got a private dead-end road. It's saying it shall remain private. So it's a circumstance that to me, it's the ordinance stating that the town is not going to accept ownership of a private dead-end road, which is what we have here. And it's the intent of the applicants that it will remain so. Subdivision streets approved before the year of 2019 may be extended within the parent parcel and petitioned to become a public way. Again, here, the road is built to its full length. There's no intent. There wasn't, part of this application was just carving out a new lot. No need or desire on the part of the applicants to extend the road in any way. It's going to remain the same length. It's going to continue to serve 3 or more dwelling units. Everything's sort of status quo. If the street is connected to, I'm reading back to in 7.21, if the street is connected to another street, making it a throughway with a second means of egress to a public way and built to town standards, it may be petitioned to become a public way. Again, speaking to the intent of this standard, if you're building a new road, build it to town standards, not a standard that is meant to apply to existing roads which are not proposed to be lengthened or connected to an additional town way. So this is all to say that I think there's, in the absence of a clear guidance in the ordinance saying specifically what how this requirement is intended to apply, I don't think there's any evidence to suggest that it was intended to or should apply to existing private roads that are not being proposed to be lengthened or altered in any way. So for these reasons, I think I would ask the board to vacate the CEO's decision and direct the CEO to grant the building permit allowing the construction of an additional single-family dwelling on a portion of Lot 14-3, just as the town did earlier this year with the third dwelling unit that currently derives legal access from West Meadows Lane. So I think I'll leave it at that for now, and happy to take any questions the board might have.
If you're going to speak, you need to come up and be addressed.
Well, I
Right now we have some-
think we have some folks here that might want to speak in the public
They
comment.
certainly will have the
Yeah,
opportunity.
I figured.
You'll have your
Yep.
opportunity, the town will have its opportunity, and then we'll certainly take comments from the public.
Thank you.
So are we asking questions of him now?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question.
Shoot.
Lot 14 and Lot 14-4, do they have access onto the Hubbard Road?
Jump in if you guys know. I'm just looking up.
Yes, the two parcels on the end, yes, they have frontage on West Meadows. Their address is Hubbard Road.
Okay.
But could the town come up and clarify that for us? Because I got a question about that.
My understanding is James Bellissimo, Director of Planning and Development for the town of Berwick. My understanding is there are existing driveways off Hubbard Road into those two lots. So you can access that lot off Hubbard Road. From looking at Google Maps, it looks pretty clear there's driveways.
Right, but the question's going to be, because I heard something about drive the frontage.
Right.
Do they have appropriate frontage on Hubbard to actually be on Hubbard Road, or do they have to derive their frontage from West Meadows?
I don't know the exact answer to that question. It sounds like they're getting frontage from West Meadows.
You get frontage from us.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how much frontage they have on Hubbard Road itself.
I mean,
Is it easy to pull it up real quick, their tax map?
Yeah, I think one does and one doesn't.
That's not enough.
I'd have to look on the tax maps.
Well, I mean, we're really going down a rabbit hole if we've got five lots now with frontage on West Meadows. No, I think we definitely need some clarification on that. I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter. Once you're over 2, we're still in the boat trying to figure out where we're at right now.
And that might be a discussion too. I might defer to Grady on where getting frontage and driveways come in. My understanding is the driveway does not necessarily have to come from the frontage. So when it comes to access to lots, that would be an interpretation that I would be asking for if it counts towards the dwelling unit standard. If they get frontage on West Meadows, but a driveway off Hubbard Road, should it count towards the dwelling unit standard? So that's, I don't know the answer to that question.
I think Planner Bellissimo is asking a good question, and I get to punt it back over to you guys and say that's part of your interpretive analysis for this ordinance. Access, what access to lots means in this instance, and construing, what that ordinance provision means for these properties. I think Attorney Savitsky has taken the position that the road standards, as a first principle, only apply to new roads. That's an issue I think you guys dealt with in the previous appeal as well. But I think there may be a factual question that you'll have to grapple with as well as to, I think even if you take the same legal interpretation that you took at the prior appeal regarding what that language applies to in the ordinance, if you determine that the ordinance language requires that any road, whether it's a previously constructed road or a new road, meets the standards on the table depending on how many dwelling units serve that road. There's a factual question as to how many dwelling units there are. So that would be, I think, a question you'd have to grapple with at that point in the analysis, whether a lot having frontage on a different road or having direct, if the driveway is front out onto a different road or to the public way, whether that is something that gets swept into the analysis under the table. That's something that you'll have to look at as well.
Okay.
If I may, while I'm up here, is it okay to
Yes.
add a different note? In 2017, I believe those civil consultants provided a report to confirm that the road met the 2 dwelling unit standard. So the report showed it met the 2 dwelling unit standard, not the town standard of paving.
Right. If it didn't meet, if there were 3 dwellings on there, it wouldn't have met that. It only met the 2 dwelling
Right.
for when it was built.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So I think we're right back to where we were.
Oh, do we, are the other people?
Well, I guess Mr. Savinsky is still up there and ready to answer questions. So I'm really, I guess, would you step up, Mr. Because I'm kind of addressing you. I'm looking at the board, but I mean, I think we're kind of right back where we were at the appeal before that, in a sense. I mean, I guess I understand what you're saying, that the town has modified the way they accept roads now. There was an addendum made to the ordinance to do that. I'm not entirely sure that they, and we can ask James after I clarify this with you. We aren't taking roads now like you read in the ordinance unless there are through roads. They're not gonna, the town just doesn't plan to take the responsibility of plowing but I'm not entirely sure that when they made that modification, they looked at the road standards and made sure the road standards work now with the new, what's now in the ordinance for what the town will accept and won't. And I think I said it at the last meeting, I think the town fully expected in the past to, once you started putting a third road on there, on a development, on a right-of-way, on, that they were then wanted it to be done to town standards so that it could in the future be accepted if that's what, the way it was gonna go, rather than wait, put 5 houses on there and then figure out how they were gonna get the town road accepted. Because most, I believe, in my time, most times that there's been more than 2 houses put on a road and it's been paved, the town is, someone has gone in and asked for the town to accept that road. So that was past history. So we're in a, I'm not entirely sure the words reflect that now because the town has changed the ordinance. So that's where I'm kind of struggling with right now. I don't think that the last house that was approved, I believe, well, we can let the town come up, but I believe in my writing someplace I heard that that was approved in error, that it shouldn't have been approved. I think that's, let me get the right number, 3, I believe. 14.3 that was approved in 25. I don't believe the town can speak to that, but I don't believe that should have been approved. So now, we're also talking about another lot that has, might have access. If it has frontage on the right-of-way, that's always been in my, and we'll have the town address this too, it's always been my understanding that once you get front access to that property, that becomes a dwelling on that road. Whether you got access off Hubbard, once you get your frontage off the right-of-way, that becomes a dwelling on the right-of-way. So, I know, now we've got 4 houses, it seems like, on this dwelling, and it seems like 2 might have been in error at this point in time, in my opinion. I don't think I've asked you a question, I'm more getting clarification
I was
here.
waiting for the question.
Well, I don't know if I have one, because I'm getting back, I think, more to the town addressing a couple of those questions that I had.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, my understanding is section 7.21 has been on the books since 88 or 90. And I don't know how many houses we heard in the last appeal on Birchcroft Lane. There's certainly more than 4 or 5. I think it's maybe even more than 10 lots that derive their legal frontage from Birchcroft Lane, and that road has been developed over the course of many years, and I think the town's historical interpretation of 7.21, which the town has interpreted apparently for decades a certain way, is now all of a sudden changed to the detriment of these applicants and the Streamline folks as well.
Well, for clarification on Birchcroft Lane, I believe there was one new house that was built on there after the ordinance came into effect. The rest were on the road prior to the ordinance, so they would have been, in a sense, grandfathered. But in the writing we did have for Streamline, the wording did say that the last house on Birchcroft was put in error as well. I understand we seem to get more errors than we have anything else, but this one was a few years ago back. We can't even get the code officer to, this no longer here to address that. But we certainly have the code officer here to address the 2015, 2025, thank you, house. Would you like me to do that now? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Terry Wilson, the Code Enforcement Officer for the town of Berwick. When I look at applications that come before me, I do not take into account frontage when I'm considering access to a road. So in my opinion, Lot 14 and 14-4 are not residences on West Meadow because their driveways are actually off of Hubbard Road. So we have many similar instances in the town where you can derive a frontage from a right-of-way, but have access off of a different road, and those are not counted towards the number of dwellings on that private road or the undeveloped road. In the case of West Meadows, we did have 2 existing dwellings on the road. I did in error approve the 3rd house to go in. Then that was my mistake. However, I don't think that that error it sets a precedent for, houses to continually be added to the road. So that there is 3 houses currently on West Meadow, 1 put in an error. The road, according to the reports, is currently a 2-dwelling unit standard. So technically, when the 3rd house went in 2025, the road should have been brought up to the town road standard. And that was my, like I said, that was my error in approving that application.
Thank you.
Did you have any other questions?
I have a clarifying question.
Yes. Thank you.
So just to be clear, from the town's perspective, the roads that, the lots that are being counted for the access standard, I have lot 14-3, which was a residence built in 2025.
Yes.
That's correct. That's the one I approved in error.
Okay. And what were the other 2?
Lot 14-2 and 14-1.
2 and 1.
Mm-hmm.
So lot 14 proper, and then lot 14.14.4. From your perspective,
Both access their lots from Hubbard Road.
Okay.
Okay.
And based on your observations, as far as you know, lots 14.3, 14.2, and 14.1 do not currently have access to the public way without utilizing this private road. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
James, could you come up? And then I'll open it up to the public. Could you speak a little bit to the road standards and
Sure.
the new amendment that we put
Sure.
in that us not accepting roads anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I think 7.21 and the road construction standards probably could be clarified a bit. But my understanding is you look at both of them and can you look at them together. So 7.21, it points to the road construction standards, but also it puts in that provision of essentially the moratorium, for lack of a better word, on taking over new roads. So then you read those together. And yeah, that's pretty much, that's my answer to that. I think you read both of them together.
Was, when we were using the town standards, I don't think you've been here that long, but was it typically the reason we put it to the pave for 3 is because the thought was that they potentially could want it to become a town road, it become a subdivision of some sense or assembly? Not because it hasn't gone to subdivision, but as you put more houses on a private road, at some point in time, it may want to be a town road. Was there any thought in these words to that? I'm just trying to understand.
I just had a good point and I forgot the point, but
That's because I talk too much.
yeah, I mean, I know from my understanding and my experience, I believe it's in there for public safety. We don't want to get too many houses on there without it not being on a proper road base. I think it's a mechanism in town that is designed to curb growth. I think it's done by design as a growth mechanism, trying to keep the rural areas rural. I can't think of the other. If I think of the other point, I'll come back. But do you have other questions on?
At what point in time, help me understand, when you start subdividing a lot of land, can you continue to subdivide without going to subdivision?
Generally, it's 3. If you split 3 lots in a 5-year period, it's a subdivision.
That's what I remember, the 5-year period.
With some there's exceptions, but generally the
Right.
rule is 3 in a 5-year period is a subdivision.
And these ones wouldn't be anywhere near that because of the time frame. Right, 18, 5 years, 21, 25. I guess there's only 2 that have been split off in the 5-year period.
My understanding, there hasn't been a subdivision. I don't believe there has been.
So if they wanted to do more, they could, but they would have to go to subdivision at that point.
There's another lot split off.
Just
probably,
more for
yeah.
my clarification, okay. Any further questions of James before I open it up to public? Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Would someone like to speak? Come up, state your name, please, for the record.
My name's John West. I live on West Meadows Road. And my question had to do with what was the thinking behind only 2 houses on a gravel road that meets town standards?
I don't think I can answer that. It's basically was put in nearly the beginning of when the ordinance was enacted. So we're talking some 30 years ago. So I'm not sure there's any history, and we can have the town, address it as well, but I'm not sure there's any history that I'm going to know about of why they went with that. I think one of the things is they were trying to prevent Birchcroft Lane. I don't know if you're familiar with Birchcroft Lane. It's a windy wagon path that has a number of homes on it. They were there, many of them before the ordinance, but I don't think they wanted to recreate that kind of setup for the sake of safety and getting trucks and fire and stuff in. It'd be my sense.
I can accept that. But in the case of West Meadows Lane, it's a nice little road. It's got a firm base on it. I put it in, and I had the civil consultants inspect it. And we've had emergency vehicles down there. We have trucks down there all the time. The road is sound. We could do a turnaround if that's needed, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. And it seems like what was mentioned just a few minutes ago, preventing growth in Berwick, might be the root cause of it. In which case, I would like to talk to whomever came up with that idea.
I think the dilemma that, and I'll let Grady, what's your?
Burns.
Burns. Mr. Burns speak if I get this all filed up. But essentially, fairness doesn't come into our decisions here. It's frustrating for us at times. We only can go by what the words say, and we can't say, well, this one should apply to these words and this one doesn't. So that's why we're at 7.21 right now, is to try to figure out its relevance to the situation that's at hand, because it doesn't clarify any of that. It just has a table, and that's what it says. So that's, I guess, why we're here, is to try to work our way through that.
Okay.
Okay? Any other comments? I do have a letter that was presented, because someone couldn't attend. Can I just attach that to the minutes?
So, do you know if a copy has been provided to the parties at this point?
My sense is no, but James, could you speak to that? It is the parties may. This showed up on my desk tonight.
Yeah, we received a letter at like 4:45, so I did not send it to the parties. Yeah.
Is it possible to make a copy of it to give
Yeah.
to Attorney
Yeah.
Samiski?
Yep.
Now that it's in your hands, I would say it becomes part of the record, but certainly we want to make sure that all the parties have an opportunity to look at it as well.
Okay.
And we would want to make sure that all of the members also
chance to
would
see
have
it.
a chance to, potentially reading it into the record might be appropriate in that instance. If the town has accepted it as part of the record, then reading it in to make sure that
Everyone knows
everyone
what's
knows
in the
what it
letter.
says. Yeah.
Well, I'm more than willing to do that. I'm not the greatest at reading here, so we can struggle through this. Ashton will read it for me. How's that?
So I hold said letter in my hand. Miss Rachel Urakis. And it's sent to us, to the town. To the members of the appeals committee, apologies, I'm unable to be there in person. I broke my foot over the weekend. I believe this rule was created for the exact situation of West Meadow. I am the owner of 103 Hubbard Road. When my ex and I purchased this property, we knew this right-of-way was happening, and a couple of houses were going back there. When the lot behind me sold to the Belcoms, the road was to go in. As most I know, we then had our barn fire. As I'm trying to put my life back together, the people putting in the road are knocking on my door because they cannot get or know how to get a hold of Mr. West for guidance. The water table is very high to begin with. 101 had to change their build because of it. A year or so ago, the state came down Hubbard Road and gave everyone except 101 and myself culverts. I called the town and the state trying to get it done with no luck. During a conversation one day about this, Miss West suggested that we put the culvert in ourselves. It was at this point Miss West informed me that we, 101 and myself, made any changes to the road, the burden becomes ours to bring the road up to code. Realizing the setup they were trying to put us in, we passed, and 101 did their own small culvert. This poorly made road has faced a lot of heavy machinery, especially of late. We have had close to 6 months of tree clearing and tree trucks coming in and out, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. Knowing there was issues with the road and that I wanted it fixed, I went to the town trying to find out who purchased the land so I could speak with them. There was nothing on file. There are currently 3 homes down there, 6 adults, 2 cleared lots ready to go. We currently deal with speeding and had to stop letting our son ride his bike on the road years ago because of it. Once you get to the tree line, the water table is not an issue. It does not take much rain for myself and 101 to flood our yards. The road is maintained with gravel. Since that first winter, we have been unable to mow by the road where it floods and gets long because of all those loose rocks. They 6 put together a road HOA this past winter and invited us and 101 to the meeting. I was informed by Miss West this spring we were removed from the HOA. I am not a fool. I know paving and fixing the road will cost a lot of money. I don't expect the entire thing to be paved or any paving at all. I would like to see the road back to code and water issues fixed. I would like to be clear, I am not against any of the houses out back there or to be back there. I feel I have gone above what is expected to talk with the new neighbors in hopes of working together and addressing the road, only to be lied to, intimidated, and bullied. I am a proud Berwick homeowner and love my home. I would be a fool to not protect my property. I ask the appeals committee to help me protect my property and come to some middle ground. I think that she wants some, yeah, thank you. Maybe some once the end of the road fixed, I don't know, upgraded. Yeah, if someone would like to come up and tell us which Mr. Urakis wants.
The culvert she's talking about, the road was approved by civil consultants without a culvert, as is. And in fact, if you looked at it, if you put a culvert in at the end of the driveway, it would be above the water. If you put it in where the water is, the water wouldn't know which side of the driveway to go to because it's all one level.
It'd be a full culvert.
And before we sold the property to subdivide it, it's been that way for years. So that's not an issue. I explained that to her, but she refused to accept it. There's no speed limit on that road. And quite frankly, you can't do more than about 20 miles an hour on it. It's a dirt road. But she is very sensitive to any car going down that road. Doesn't matter whose it is. And in fact, at one point, she came out and she accosted you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For speeding, at which point I stepped in and said, Rachel, you need to comment
Just
down
one
a little.
second.
So, the board can take whatever testimony it finds to be relevant. That was read into the record. Certainly, if the appellant or other individuals disagree with some of the factual statements that were made, that's up to the board to determine whether or not that's relevant to hear. I think I would just remind the board that your role here, as you said, Mr. Chair, is relatively narrow. The board is here to determine whether or not the permits subject to the appeal must issue based on the language of the ordinance. And so, getting facts relevant to that determination is helpful. But again,
It's our choice.
it's been read into the record, so you can do with it what you will.
Gotcha.
Okay, it's a rabbit hole. If you
I'm okay with that.
have no more questions, then.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, can,
So, she's fine. She wants to speak next.
my name's Dick Balcom. I'm a homeowner, 2 West Meadows. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole. I just want to endorse everything John just said. I think this lacks credibility, and it's detrimental to what we're trying to achieve into us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you still want to come up, miss? Oh, you were struggling to.
Yeah, I kind of
Yep.
reinforce what Dick just said. This particular individual has had a lot of animosity towards just about everybody on the road and has been like that since day one. The house that she is living in was the house that my husband and I lived in since 1999. We were the ones that divided the land up and put the road in. That water issue, it's flat there, you know.
What do you do? Where's it going to go?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just as a matter of process, Mr. Chair, once public comment has been received and no one else wants to speak, the appellants should have one more opportunity to respond to anything that was raised by the town or public comment or any final comments that they would like to put on the record.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if I'm going to have more comment. Will there be another opportunity later in this hearing?
Probably not.
Okay. Yeah.
Stay focused to what we're trying to
Well, I
decide.
know, and that's what I want to do, but I want to see how this plays out before I may have another comment just prior to the vote.
Well,
So,
This is it.
And because I'm confused on a few things, and I'm thinking listening to the board here may help or may not, and that might lead to some more questions that I might have or comments. So I would love it if it might be another opportunity later.
So I would just say, Mr. Chair, as a matter of process, generally, the board will close the public hearing and then enter into deliberations and signal when the record is closed. once a public hearing is closed, I would recommend that the board does not take any additional testimony. If you have any additional questions during deliberations, certainly you can ask the parties or direct them to whomever you may need to direct them to. But once the record is closed and deliberations begin, the board should not take any additional testimony.
So he needs to talk.
So does that help or help you?
Puts me on the spot, is what it does. Yeah, I guess I'm a little frustrated with the entire experience because you do have a narrow spot you're coming from. You have to stick to whatever that is,
7.21.
7.21. If you're really constricted by those words that are on there, it just seems to me there's no place for an appeal to go.
Superior Court, unfortunately, that's the next.
I've said it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Is this everybody that lives on the road? Or is there, besides Mr. Yagas?
Yeah.
It's a dead end.
Yep.
It's 13 feet long.
Yeah, and no one minds no one has an opposition apparently. No one came up. No one has an opposition.
This is it.
There's no opposition to what these people are trying to achieve.
No, that's all right.
I can put it for the record. Because I want to thank you, I appreciate it. The homeowners on 2 West Meadow Lanes are totally supportive of what's trying to be accomplished here. We have no issues at all, and that's the way we stand. Thank you.
Public is all set. Would you like to speak one more time?
Of course I would. I'm a lawyer. Well, it underscores a larger point, the comments from the folks here. No one's opposing what the applicants are trying to do. Not even this letter that I just saw for the first time a few minutes ago seems to be opposing what the applicants are trying to do. It's more just I read it as a complaint about the current condition of the road. She doesn't mention 7.21 at all or have any opposition to an additional home being put on the road as it currently exists, as long as it's improved in her mind. So I will say, with the streamlined appeal, I know you've already rendered your decision on that appeal, but it didn't seem to be there to be any opposition to what those folks were trying to do with those 2 legal lots of record that were created in 1987 or thereabouts. I'll tell you that I've fielded a call from yet another homeowner in Berwick with a similar complaint about this exact same provision in the ordinance. So it's a big problem that however the board decides this particular appeal, and I understand you're constrained by what the text of the ordinance says, but I would interpret it, given the lack of clarity in the ordinance, to apply to instances in which a new road is being constructed or an applicant is offering to the town a road for acceptance as a public way, and that's not happening here. It wasn't happening in the streamline appeal either. Birchcroft has a road association that has been established and in existence for many years that is responsible for maintaining and upkeep of the road. The applicants, the streamline matters closed, but it's the ordinance. The town is interpreting the ordinance in a way that, like the streamline folks, they didn't even have the legal right to do what the town was requiring. It's in my mind, an absurd interpretation of ambiguous ordinance language. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if there's no additional comment from the parties, I would recommend that the board closes the public hearing.
Did I open it again?
I would, at the very least, I would.
Close it. How's that?
That sounds good. That sounds good. We'll say you're in it.
I did say we were on that part of the agenda, so I guess that maybe was inferred that we are opening the hearing. I'll get this one day. So at this point in time, we will close the hearing and go into deliberations. There may be an opportunity that questions come up from the board. We will direct them to whoever we need to answer the question or concern that we have. It won't be any more opportunity for the public to voice any comments unless they're directly asked a question by the board. Okay. So now we're in deliberations. We've heard quite a lot.
Yeah, and I'll give a very brief spiel again. I know we were just here last week to talk about the kind of the scope and your duties here. But under your ordinances, any decision by the code enforcement officer is reviewable to you under what we call de novo review. That means that you are hearing de novo is just a fancy way of saying like new. You are what that means is you are not bound or you should not defer to the prior decision by the code enforcement officer. You're looking at this with fresh eyes to determine these matters based on your own understanding of the facts and your own interpretation of the ordinances. The evidence you've heard, it's your job to weigh the facts and determine based on your review of the record what is true and what is not true. Likewise, you've heard different interpretations of the language of your ordinances. It's your job to determine your own interpretation of these ordinances and determine as a board what these ordinances mean and how they apply to the application in front of you. With that, I'm happy to talk through any legal questions the board might have, but you're in deliberations, so I'll kick it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we're basically at the same point. We were a different argument at the same point we were at during the last appeal on 7.21, and that is at what point in time does the road standards come into play for paving the road? I think if the appellant wanted to pave the road, we wouldn't even be here. I mean, I don't think that's probably what they want to do, but if they did and met the town construction standards for 3 lots on a right-of-way, there would be they could get a permit and there wouldn't be a need to be here. I think in the last meeting, we pretty much said that Birchcroft Lane being a right-of-way, it doesn't count. I mean, it has to go from, in our deliberations the last time, that the public way was Little River Road, and so anything after that was in the context of the having to have 3 lots paved. I think it's going to be difficult for us to go back on that decision based on this situation, but that's just where I'm kind of looking at right now. I mean, I understand that the road standards are, it talks about specific examples, but we've always used the road standards, in my understanding, since we've enacted this ordinance. We've always gone back to the road standards in this ordinance haven't changed, and these are the road standards they've used every time. So rather the wording up top is completely accurate for the situation we have, I think it's still what we've used in the past. And I can listen to, I can stop talking anytime and let someone else.
So, our lawyer, our representation
Mr. Barrett?
with a, yep, Mr. Mercer, yep, yeah, just 10.3 powers and duties.
122?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we?
Page 122.
Our powers and duties of the Board of Appeals.
Yep.
10.4A, it seems, so that's just height, lot size, width, structure size, setbacks, and open space. And those are the items that we can modify or say, well, it's a few feet short, but whatever.
So that's for an application for a variance,
And that's not what this
and
is,
that's so we are in administrative appeal land. So where you want to look first would be 10.3A, which gives the board the power to hear and decide appeals where it's alleged there is a land use violation or error in any order, requirement, decision, or determination made by the code enforcement officer in the enforcement of this ordinance. Let's see. And then there is also language in 10.5A1. An appeal may be taken to the Board of Appeals by an aggrieved person from any decision of the code enforcement officer. Such appeal shall be taken within 30 days of the decision appealed from. So, that actually, as an initial matter, before you dive too far into the merits, there are some preliminary items, jurisdiction, timing, quorum, and I will ask you all again about conflict of interest as well before we go any farther, to ensure that those threshold matters are taken care of before you have to go any farther. As a board, you need to determine, one, that you have jurisdiction to hear this appeal. Under your ordinance, you have appeals that are you can hear appeals from decisions of the CEO, and such appeals generally must be made within 30 days of the decision appealed from an aggrieved party. An aggrieved party generally is a person who is injured in some particular way by the decision of the code enforcement officer. So, not to put words in your mouth, but it appears from just from the materials presented that we are dealing with a code enforcement officer decision. So I think I would want to hear from the board, just to have the board confirm this is a timely appeal, and that you have determined that this individual has standing to bring the appeal as well.
Which we probably should have done in the beginning.
It's totally appropriate to do that for the purposes of deliberation here, but they're just threshold things that you want to work through. And if you do have questions as those particular issues, I'm sure that the parties can speak to them as well.
Well,
So when was the code officer, what was the date of the denial of the code enforcement officer?
we can ask, Terry, would you come up?
I don't see that letter.
So it appears that the application is timely. I did see that the denial happened on September 11th. If you can excuse me for 1 minute, I'll tell you when the application.
August 12th, Terry Wilson denied.
Okay, thank you. So, therefore, it is
It's
timely.
timely.
Yes. Did you want me to speak to anything else?
No,
Okay.
that's fine. So, Pat, it seems like it is timely, and we've been talking all about 7.21, so clearly we're within the ordinance when we're of this issue. So, do you,
I have no conflict of interest.
oh, that was the third one, neither do I.
I don't know any of the people in the room besides the town officials.
I'll speak
Do
briefly.
you have a conflict of interest? Can you address the conflict of interest first? Do you have one?
No, okay. Sorry.
No, before you, we got a few things right now that we want to, is this something to do with the three things that Mr. Burns mentioned right now?
Timing, jurisdiction, and conflicts are the three threshold pieces,
No.
just before we get to the
So
merits.
Do you want a motion on that, or you just
Nope.
a general consensus that we're all
As
comfortable?
long as the board is satisfied you have jurisdiction and that it's timely, then I would encourage you to move ahead and
Good enough.
dive into the merits.
All right, sounds good. All right, Ernie. Sorry about that.
Not a problem.
So, did you have something? Did you-
I just want to address the fact that I did carefully read Attorney Savisky, is it?
Zavisky, yes.
His letter, but what was a little confusing to me was interpretation of certain pieces of language, in the sense that undue financial hardship was all about the ordinance, and also he in his letter indicated that the people who were going to develop were going to put in affordable, modest housing.
This is the other appeal.
I think you may be looking at the letter related to the variance application.
Yeah.
The letter related to this present appeal, it's dated September 11th, 2025, and the RE line is Administrative Appeal Map R034 Lot 14-3, related to Anderson Merrifield LLC. It was also in your packet.
Yeah.
Well, I agree that we are kind of in the same situation we were before. And understanding that the two, 14 and 14.4 had access to Hubbard Road, and then 14.1 and 14.2 were two lots that were allowed. 14.3 should not have been allowed, and now we're asking for 14.5, just because there was one mistake putting another lot in there. To me, two mistakes don't make anything right, and I don't think we should be allowing another, a fourth house on that road, because it needs, if that person wants it, then they now will have to bring the group will have to bring the road up to the standards, and that's the way I interpret the land use ordinance. And I regret that there was a mistake already made, and I regret then that the people buying, thinking that they could build again, it's very frustrating, and I'm sure it's financially a problem for people to be in this situation. But we need to interpret the ordinance the way it is written and its intent. That's my fault.
The question that you had, I think, on the last one was because they were grandfathered. This is not, this is a lot that's been
Yeah, the latest, I mean, this is from
broken out recently.
2024. This is
So-
new.
So we're back to, if we continue to go down this road, then any dirt right away in town right now that has
That's right.
been not building or been denied because they've been the third lot, we're going to open them all up to more. Now, that's not the reason we deny it, but I think it's the reason why the words have interpreted the way they were this long, because everyone kind of in the back of their mind, you know, when you talk to people, they say, well, it's always been that way. There's two houses on the dirt road, and we knew that we couldn't put another one there unless we went and met the town standards for a paved road.
Right.
I think that's past history. I mean, I understand that the words aren't as clear as we might like them to be.
I do agree that I'm looking for. I want to find something in here. You got a group of people, and nobody cares, and everyone wants to do it. But I'm stuck here. I'm stuck to the words. My hard staple on the last one is 1987. It was to prove I felt that it should be let through. Here I see a group of people that don't care, and how does it hurt anybody by putting the last house in? But you can't justify it in our narrow gauge here. I want to find something, but
Also, I think for us, we also need to be thinking in a bigger way, not just when individuals come in like this. We feel bad for the individuals and that kind of thing, but we have to realize that the reason why the ordinance was written this way was for the benefit of our town and for the benefit and following the comprehensive plan that is even a bigger picture that we need to be adhering to. And I think even though it's painful for you guys, I think in clear conscience, we need to be looking out for the benefit of the town.
The one thing that I believe that we are allowed to do that has no bearing on this case, but I really want to get it out there, is we can make recommendations as to modifications to clarify some of the stuff that we've gone through. I don't know if we take it to the Board of Selectmen or who we end up making recommendations to, but clearly we've had 2 cases, and it sounds like we've got another one potentially on the way, where the words just aren't that, I mean, there's enough ambiguity there that
Yeah.
we seem to depend on history. It seems like we should be able to get these words clarified so that we aren't saying it's history that's repeating this, it's
Right.
the words that are actually there and mean what
And I
the
think back
intent
in
is.
1988, when it was done, it probably was clear and it probably was all that was needed. But I think now that we're having a lot of development pressure, I think it's true. We need to help beef up the ordinance in whatever way people think it should be beefed up.
Well, we're the ones that hear the argument, so it's like, we're the ones that get the words addressed to us, so it seems like we might be able to look at it and
Yep.
look for some better wording, if that's the case.
I think it goes to planning.
That makes sense.
So, I just want to be as the potential drafter for a decision here. I just want to make sure. So, I've heard the board talk about a little bit, kind of historically, what you understand that this House ordinance was interpreted in the past. I will note it's entirely possible that an ordinance could be interpreted incorrectly in the past. Your job here is to look at the language here, determine one, based on the plain language of the ordinance, if the meaning of that ordinance is clear. If it is unclear, if the meaning is susceptible to 2 or more reasonable interpretations, that's what we call an ambiguous ordinance. If the ordinance is ambiguous, then it's your job to put on your, get out your magnifying glasses and read the language and determine what the most reasonable interpretation is based on the provisions around the ordinance, using context clues, looking at what we call the canons of interpretation, which have rule, just looking at trying to give meaning to every word as much as you can, trying to avoid potentially absurd results from how the ordinance is being interpreted, things like that. So I think and some of this may be a rehash of your discussion last time around. But I think the appellants have taken the position here that the best way to interpret this ordinance is that the table and the language regarding 3 or more dwelling units and town of Berwick road construction standards is intended, the most appropriate way and most reasonable way to interpret that language is that it's referring to newly constructed roads or roads that are being offered up for acceptance. I don't want to speak to for Attorney Savitsky, but that was my understanding of what he was arguing. I think the town has taken a position that the most reasonable interpretation of this language is that 3 or more dwelling units, the provision access to lots, and then the table road standards are intended to be applicable to the construction of any 3 or more dwelling units on any access way to a public way, and that for those once there is construction of 3 or more dwelling units, the table indicates that Town of Berwick road construction standards apply, and then that gets kicked over to the separate construction standards that are contained in the road standards. I think that's my sense of what the town's position is here. So you've talked about this a little bit already last week. I would just like to hear from you again about how you read that language and where that language points you in reference to the facts of this case here.
So what we heard, there's one big question I'd have with that is if it's a new road and there's 3 homes on the road, you're in subdivision. So subdivision would take care of whatever issue has to happen. So clearly, that's not what these words are there for, in my opinion. They're there for any situation where you're going to put on, because if we go this way, you could, in theory, put 8 or 10 roads on that, 8 or 10 houses on that road, as long as you got the right frontage and everything. You'd have to do it in the appropriate time, in accordance with the 5 years or whatever, but it's never been taken that way, that you could just end up with multiple homes on a dirt road, an old dirt road. I don't get that any place here in this interpretation for me.
I have a question about, I'm looking at these road standards, and when, I don't know if anyone here knows, but I was wondering how long the general information piece was there as opposed to the minimum standards. I thought I heard someone say that the minimum standards had always been the same, and that the general information part at the beginning was added.
James, I think you're the one.
I think the version you have is probably from 2002. If you look in the back there,
2/1902.
Last amended 2002.
It says 2/1902.
So it's been there at least since 2002. We've since amended that in May of actually 2025 to actually clarify some of that, because that's actually completely separate from any of this, just coincidentally, understanding that it is kind of confusing. But it's 2 points to a standard, 3 points to a standard, the name of the document. So that's.
I guess what I'm saying, prior to 2002, was that gone and then it was just a list of minimum standards?
I've never seen the prior version to that.
Uh-huh.
I can make a point to do that, to look.
I guess from some experience that I feel like I have had, and also from that 7.2.1, that's it, the regular table, comments, oftentimes comments are added because something came up and needed to be clarified, and so it was added in to make that clarification clear. It doesn't mean that the table and the minimum standards have changed. It just means that some things needed some clarification. And if what you're looking at doesn't meet what's been put in for clarification for certain examples of things that have come up, then you just go by your minimum standards in your table. If, however, for example, under the table, if the dead-end streets, so if those things occur, apparently somewhere along the line, those things occurred, and they had to be clarified. But it doesn't change the fact that these are the standard things to follow, and these are examples that needed additional clarification. And I feel the same way about the minimum standards. I think the minimum standards have been there and haven't changed for a long time. And some of this stuff for general information may have been put in as times required more sophistication or times required more detail about that wasn't enough when the ordinance was written initially. So I don't know that for a fact on the road things, but to me it's a possibility that that follows the same thing. I think throughout the ordinance, if you look throughout the ordinance, things keep getting tacked on because of ambiguity and to help in clarification. But the basic things are still there and still remain. And then the ambiguity, hopefully, is for whatever situation it was, is cleared up in the new statements that are written. It doesn't change the fact that you still have the minimum standards, you still have the table. And so to me, for the road standards, the part that Mr. Sadisky refers to are parts that were added for clarification. They were not parts that were supposed to change the basic minimum standards and whatever for just the run-of-the-mill types
What it's
of
applicable to.
things. So,
I think adding that general information made that, say, the townway stuff, and that made it seem, does it only apply to those? When they added that, I see what you're saying. If it was just minimum standards, there wouldn't be the question of if it's going to be a town road or not.
right. And so
That
I
would-
think that wasn't an issue originally.
Right.
It was just minimum standards, or if it's not going to be a town road, then it doesn't apply, and you just do the minimum standards. So I think that's the way I see it.
So I think what Pat's indicating is that her, and I'll speak for you, Pat, but I want to make sure that I'm
Writing it down.
getting it right. What I'm hearing you say is that your understanding is that the minimum standards contained in the road opening standards and road construction standards are the standards that are being referred to in the table.
Yes.
Okay. And that to the extent those standards are applicable to that road, then they need to be applied to that road. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Which I think is, what in the past, just recently, that's kind of what I referred to when we talked about the last appeal, that Little River Road was the road, and anything coming off of that had to meet the minimum standards. So I think I tried to clarify on the last one what we thought the public road meant and where when you come off of that, when you have to meet that table. Have we come to some sense of where we're headed with this?
Yeah.
How you doing, Ernie? You all set?
I'm doing. Yeah, I'm good.
So it sounds like there's a consensus at the table for Pat's interpretation of how the ordinance should be read here, that the table instructs you anytime there are 3 or more dwelling units going to, that are using an access way to a public way, then I think what I'm hearing is there's consensus that that should be read as referring you to the minimum standards contained in the road construction standards, and that those would be applicable anytime you have 3 or more dwelling units that are being constructed on a single access way to a public road.
Correct.
Okay. Do any of the other members have thoughts on that view that was put out there?
I don't disagree with it.
I don't either.
Okay. Okay, so I think you've dealt with the interpretive question there. Now you have to apply that to the case here. So based on that interpretation, where does that leave you for the construction that has been proposed at this site?
That
It cannot be approved by the words that are in front of us, even though one just was months ago. But it shouldn't have been, and neither can this one.
And what would be the reason why?
Because the road needs to meet town standards. With this pavement of everything it says on the minimum standards
and it needs to meet the
of
minimum
the town
standards.
for a town road.
So
And 3 or more dwellings.
for 3, okay, and so you've heard there's a few properties that front out onto that utilize the public way for access, and then there are a number of properties that do not. So it sounds like you're saying that based on the facts that you've heard here, there are 3 or more dwelling units that would utilize this private road for access, and that therefore based on your interpretation, those standards would apply.
Correct.
That's
Okay.
right.
And
14.1, 2, and 3, I believe.
I will defer to the chair on that one. Yeah, I think the town indicated that 14.1, 2, and 3 did not front out onto Hubbard Road, is my recollection. Okay, so if the board is saying that the road standards do apply here, the last question on the merits would be whether those standards are met. And if the answer is yes, then a building permit should issue. If the answer is no, then a building permit should not issue. Does that make sense?
The road standards are not met
Okay.
for exceeding 3 dwellings.
And what provisions are you looking at that lead you to that conclusion?
7.21. And the standards, where it refers you to the Town of Berwick road construction standards and road opening standards.
Okay.
Which
Those
state
standards.
that the minimum standards state that there has to be paved.
Okay.
So-
And you heard testimony that it's not.
It is no.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Do we want to do this? We're into another boat situation here. If we approve this, we're going to have to meet within 7 days to approve the finding. I guess we got to anyway.
Yeah. So I mean I'm if you designate me to draft up a decision based on or a draft decision based on your discussions here, I'm happy to do that. So if the board wishes to take a vote tonight to approve or deny the appeal, you can do so with the expectation that the written decision would then have to be issued and signed within 7 days. So I will be more timely. I would be more timely this time around to getting a draft.
Well, don't commit
for the
because you
board's
don't
review.
know. You might get, you know.
I sincerely hope I can, based on how I was feeling last week. Lightning never strikes the same place twice, right? So if the board wants to move ahead with a vote on on the appeal itself, you can do so. The board would still have to vote to adopt written findings once you've had a chance to review those
Right.
based on your decision here.
Yeah, so we'd have to set another meeting within 7 days.
Right. And you could also ask the parties if they have any objection to that process as well.
What you just stated.
Yeah, the process that just got laid out. You can I mean, you don't need to, but you can ask the parties if they have any objection to that as well.
Us taking a vote tonight or delaying it until you've got the finding of facts so that they can see the finding. Is that, I guess, I'm just trying to gauge where that would be the crux of it, I guess. is
Yeah.
Then they get to see the finding of facts before we vote on it. Where if we approve it tonight, we're just going to be approving the finding of facts.
Yeah.
If we act on it tonight, then we're just going to approve the finding of facts, and it's already going to be, the decision's already been made.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So the written decision it reflects the vote. It would reflect the vote that the board is taking and the reasons that you have laid out in your
Right.
discussions
Right.
that you reached that. So there could be some, you may need to look at that language and tweak it. But that set of written findings would be a reflection, if the board voted tonight, it would be a reflection of that vote and what the reasons you stated to get to that point. And then the question would be, does it accurately, in your mind, does it accurately reflect the reasons that you
Right. We
got to
voted.
that vote?
Right.
They just care what our vote is. They don't care about the findings. Yeah, I think that's all they wanted to
Did you
know.
Did you want to speak to that, Mr.
Savitsky.
Savitsky? I got to put an N in there every time.
No.
I know. I knew that.
I do have, if it makes any difference, I have another meeting a week from today, so I cannot be here on the 29th.
I would think then,
Let's do it.
let's do it now, then he knows what the answer is. Okay. So we need a motion to either accept or deny the appeal. Is that succinct enough?
Yep, and so I will say because the appellant bears the burden here. Generally speaking, as it's just this, it's a process thing more than anything. Because they bear the burden, a tie would default to a denial of the appeal. For that reason, I generally recommend that the motion be made framed so that you are voting on approval of the appeal, and that way, if there is a tie, you end up with that vote failing and a default to. It gets complicated if the board votes to deny the appeal and then there's a split vote and a tie. It leaves you can leave you in a strange place procedurally, but you can form the motion however you prefer.
I'd form the motion the way he suggested.
I would recommend that you entertain a motion to approve the. You can do it otherwise. So it sounds like the board is gearing up for a unanimous decision here. So it may be cleaner just to entertain a motion to deny the application and move ahead in that way.
I make a motion to deny the application.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I think we've basically reached an agreement. All right, all in favor of the motion? Passes.
All right, and then
So the appeal is denied.
And so the second motion would be to authorize me to draft up proposed findings and conclusions based on the board's deliberations and to provide those to the board at the next meeting.
So moved.
So moved.
Second? Okay, moved and second. All in favor? Okay.
All right. And Attorney Savitsky, as was the case this time, when that is provided to the town, you will get a copy as well.
So do we have to meet next Wednesday again?
We're going to have to meet within 7 days, so if Wednesday's the best day to meet, or, I mean, Mr. Savitsky said he couldn't make it. You want to make it Tuesday? Can we, is this,
I don't know what our schedules are, so just pick one and try it. Do we all have to be there?
we're going to have to be here this time, yes, because we haven't seen the findings, so everyone's going to have a chance to look at them, then give me authority to sign.
Is that something we can do
So
individually?
any discussion of the findings should happen in an open meeting. It can't happen like via email or something like that. So my recommendation is that the board holds a hopefully a very short meeting to review the draft findings, and then to review, tweak, change, reject, accept,
Right.
And then authorize the chair to sign the decision on the board's behalf. And under state law, now that you've
Wednesday.
made your vote, that written decision has to be provided to the parties within 7 days of that vote. So the board has between now and next Wednesday to do that.
Pick a date. I
When
don't have my calendar, pick a date.
we've been meeting on Wednesday, is that something that you would like to be in attendance for? We can make it Tuesday, if that would be more convenient for you. If you,
It's 30, it's Halloween.
We understand what the board's decision is. I think if we were to see a draft of the decision, and if there was anything in that draft that caused us concern or required our presence here, then
you'd make it happen.
I would make it happen. I want to be, no disrespect, I might not be here just for that, not
Right.
because I don't appreciate the work that you're doing, but I'm also, I want to
I
be
understand.
conserving my clients' resources, so.
Sure.
Okay, so the meeting date will be
Wednesday,
October 31st,
Halloween.
I have it as the 29th.
29th?
Yep. Would be next Wednesday. The 31st falls on a Friday.
Okay,
So 29th.
well, let's,
Perfect, that's better, hopefully.
29.
6:30.
Given the timing constraints here, I am going to do my utmost to get a draft to the board before the close of this business week, and also to ensure that the parties have enough time to review that to determine if especially if Attorney Fiske is not able to be here, if they have any further written objection or anything they decide they may need to do.
Right.
They have some lead time to do that.
Sounds good.
So hopefully this one will not take much time, given that you talked through the issues pretty succinctly here. So I'm happy to turn that around as quickly as I can here.
Okay, thank you. We have one more item on the agenda. If I can find the agenda. There it is. So we have a variance request off Birchcroft Lane for streamlined structures. We are ready to open the hearing? To hear
Given
hear
the
that?
time and whatnot, do we want to choose to open that now, or
Well,
Well,
I think,
hear it?
Do we need to, is the first thing we need to do is to establish whether we have jurisdiction over this and
yeah, I think we opened the hearing to do that,
to
don't we?
do that? Okay,
Yeah. So,
without hearing him talk?
well, we-
I'm
we-
questioning whether we have jurisdiction to even be hearing it.
well, I think for us to hear it, we're going to have to hear why he
Well, I
believes.
just-
So if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
If the board or members of the board have questions or concerns specifically related to the board's jurisdiction to hear the variance appeal, it might make sense to discuss those at the threshold now, and then have the parties speak to those issues potentially.
Right.
And then if the board determines that it does have jurisdiction, or that there is no other, threshold issue that would prevent the board from hearing hearing the application, then the board could proceed.
Right. I think we open the hearing to talk about it. I mean,
Sure, yeah, it has to be, you have to bring it to the floor, certainly.
right, so I guess we are still stuck on whether we talk about it, I think, before, but we open the hearing, then I think we've got to work through whether we have jurisdiction to hear this before we proceed.
And the board could instruct the parties to speak to that question first.
Well, that's what I was thinking about doing.
Sure, sure.
So, let me pull this up. So, we've opened up the hearing, and what I want to direct, page 4, where is it here? Let me get organized here. I thought it was 404. Yes, okay, 205. When I read the letter, the question came to my mind before we, is on page 2 of Mr. Savitsky's letter, third paragraph, we understand that on about June 16th, the board received a memorandum from the town's attorney suggesting access requirements in section 7.21 are dimensional standards. You remember on page 122, we can hear a variance for dimensional standards. The question is, does 7.221 come under the guidance of dimensional standards? I'd like Mr. Savitsky to explain his interpretation, and I believe then I'm going to need the town lawyer to explain his letter so that we can come to some understanding about this. Is that clear where we're headed right now?
So if Mr. Savitsky doesn't mind, I could do a little bit more table setting on the jurisdictional question, if that might assist the parties in getting to the nub of what the board is talking about here.
I can do it myself.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So I know what you're referring to, Mr. Chair. It's 10.3 in the ordinance, powers and duties of the Board of Appeals. Actually, sorry, it's which provides you have the authority to issue variances. The following section, 10.4, applies to variances. Variances may be permitted only under the following conditions, subparagraph A. Unless otherwise provided in this ordinance, variances are obtainable only for height, minimum lot size, minimum lot width, structure size, setbacks, and open space requirements. So the variance we are requesting does not fall within any of those specific categories. However, if you refer to the opening language, unless otherwise provided in this ordinance, means you have to look at the entire ordinance to determine whether or not you have jurisdiction to hear this particular variance request. So that's number one. Number two, Article 5, general provisions, 5.1, land use requirements. Except as hereinafter specified, no building, structure, or land shall hereafter be used or occupied, and no building or structure or part thereof shall hereafter be erected, constructed, moved, or altered unless in conformity with all the regulations herein specified for the district in which it is located, unless a variance is granted. So that speaks to all the regulations herein specified, unless a variance is granted. It also might be instructive for the board to look at the definition of dimensional standards. Actually, I'm sorry, it's the definition of variance. And the definition of variance in the ordinance states that it's applies to dimensional standards. So this board received a letter from Mr. Burns' colleague asking about the applicability of section 7.21 of the land use ordinance and whether it applies to legally conforming lots of record. It states in relevant part, vacant non-conforming lots of record may be built upon if they do not meet the applicable area or frontage requirements, but all other dimensional standards must be met unless a variance is obtained from the Board of Appeals under section 5.2D1. So it was that language in the guidance from your town attorney that caused us to prepare this particular application. If the town attorney is interpreting section 7.21 of the ordinance to be a dimensional standard, then it's a standard that can be varied, or that the board would have authority or jurisdiction to grant a variance from. So that was the reason for our application. Of course, if we go to the merits of the application, which is sort of maybe beyond the scope of tonight's meeting, but we certainly feel like the merits are easily satisfied given the exorbitant cost it would take to do what the town is requiring the applicant to do in order to build these two homes. Spend something in the order of $2 million to improve a road that's almost a mile long. But that was the reason behind our application. It stems from the memorandum that the town attorney provided to you back in June, and frankly, that was the reason for the delay in coming back here, is because we had to pull that application together. So, but I understand it's, well, I'll leave it at that for now. Happy to take any questions.
Would you like to speak to the letter?
I can, and if the town has an opinion, take two, but this is, I think,
I think it's referred back
referring
to
the
your
memorandum,
letter,
yeah,
so
certainly.
that's why.
So the memorandum that's being referred to is in your packet. It's the June 16th, 2025 letter from my colleague, Attorney Saucier. It was addressing a question specifically whether to assess, asked whether the access to lots requirement in section 7.2 of the land use ordinance apply to legally non-conforming lots of record. Attorney Saucier provided the opinion that, in his view, it is reasonable to interpret that section as applying to legally non-conforming lots of record, as he could not find exceptions that would otherwise exempt such lots. Further, the access to lots requirements are separate from the frontage requirements as outlined below. So the memorandum was answering a specific question, or was intended to answer a specific question, and that was whether the provisions of 7.21 apply to legally non-conforming lots of record. The analysis that was provided delves into the nonconformity standards and notes that vacant non-conforming lots of record may be built upon if they do not meet the applicable area or frontage requirements, but all other dimensional standards must be met unless a variance is obtained from the Board of Appeals under section 5.2 D1. So I think the memorandum is noting that there are certain ways that a vacant non-conforming lot of record can be built upon under the nonconformity provisions. I think it's up. I don't read this as necessarily staking out a position as to whether the standard in 7.21 constitutes a dimensional standard for the purposes of your ordinance. I think that's a question for this board, an interpretive question for this board as to whether the provision in 7.21 constitutes a standard that can be subject to a variance request under your ordinances. I think that's something that the board will have to grapple with as well. But my understanding of the purpose of this memorandum was to address a specific and fairly narrow legal question as to how the nonconformity provisions for lots of record might come into play for the standards that are contained in Article 7. And that was what it was answering.
So, well, the D1 vacant lot, that's what we're just reading there, but that's clear, we know you can't, provide it's not contiguous to any other vacant lot of the same ownership, so this, say, if, this is pursued and it goes, it can only go for one of them, one of the lots. Right, non-conforming lots of record, D1? That's what,
So you're looking at 5.2 D1.
Yes, sir. Yep. Page 31.
Yep, that was one of the
looking at.
provisions that that was the provision that Attorney Saucer was looking at,
Right. And
to answer his question.
so I could, okay, and that right off, it could only, because we have two contiguous lots there. So you could only potentially do something with one of them in this path. May be built upon provided it's not contiguous with another vacant lot in the same ownership. First line of it.
Yeah. So section D1 does state that a non-conforming lot of record may be built upon provided it is not contiguous with any other vacant lot in the same ownership. A vacant lot of record does not have to meet area or frontage requirements of this ordinance. However, all other dimensional standards of this ordinance shall be met unless a variance is obtained from the Board of Appeals. So I think the opinion you received from Attorney Saucer was addressing whether or not these lots in question constituted legally non-conforming lots by virtue of not meeting the access standard. And the conclusion was that, from Attorney Saucer, was that no. A legally non-conforming lot may be built upon if it does not meet the frontage requirement, but it still must otherwise meet the standards contained in the ordinance. So I think that was his interpretation of that language. Again, ultimately, the interpretation rests with you guys, but that was the opinion that was provided to you by my office.
Can you, Mr. Zivit, can you again make the Mr. Saucier made a certain statement that you felt unlocked or gave a window. Can you just refresh me on that?
Yeah, so it's
On
in
the
the
letter?
second paragraph, what he says,
Yep.
but all other dimensional standards must be met
Oh,
unless
that's-
a variance is obtained from the Board of Appeals under section 5.2 D1. So, the manner in which the town is interpreting this particular requirement is in the nature of a dimensional standard.
Yes.
So hence the reason for our request. The administrative appeal obviously said we don't interpret this requirement to apply at all. Here we're asking if the determination of that this particular standard applies, then we would ask for relief from that standard.
And I would just note that that language comes directly from 5.2, 5.2 D1.
Yes.
Which notes all other dimensional standards of this ordinance shall be met unless a variance is obtained from the Board of Appeals. And I believe that's the language that Attorney Saucier was reciting from his memorandum.
Frontage.
So in his last paragraph of that memorandum, he reports that it still must have legal access to that lot. In other words, frontage and access are two separate standards. We have control over the dimensional frontage types of things. But we don't have any jurisdiction over access, providing exceptions to access.
Unless it's a dimensional standard, which the way the town is interpreting the ordinance,
Road
it's
standards are dimensional.
Except what? I'm sorry.
Unless it's a dimensional standard, right?
You see,
Right.
the road standards are dimensional standards. They're saying this wide and stuff. Is that the connect?
I'm saying the ordinance can be interpreted, and the town is interpreting the ordinance in that way.
So I would just note to the board that dimensional, there is a definition in the town's ordinances that for dimensional requirements, there is no definition for dimensional standards. That definition reads, numerical standards relating to spatial relationships, including but not limited to setback, lot area, shore frontage, and height. So that's, the board may look there. Again, that definition is for dimensional requirements.
Page 7.
And that is on page 8 of my set of ordinances.
Cover sheet.
Attorney Savitsky has pointed you to language, I believe Attorney Savitsky, it was at the beginning of section 5, or Article 5, is that right?
Right.
So 5.1 stating that except as hereinafter specified, no building, structure, or land no building, structure, or land shall hereafter be used or occupied, and no building or structure or part thereof shall be hereafter erected, constructed, moved, or altered unless in conformity with all of the regulations herein specified for the district in which it is located, unless a variance is granted. So I think the first question for the board, as far as I can tell, would be to have the board talk through, in your view, what the scope of the board's power to grant a variance here is, and then from there, it would be determining whether this application falls into the category of what is permitted in terms of what you can review for variance language. I'll note as background, as legal background for the variance analysis, the courts have said repeatedly that variance language must be relatively strictly construed, and there are statutory requirements that are reflected in the town's ordinances as well. But I'm happy to answer any questions you have as you work through that analytical question. But I think the Attorney Savitsky is pointing you to some language in your ordinance. I think Pat has, or Attorney Savitsky also noted that there's specific language in Section 10.4 that also relates to when a variance can be granted by this board. But I would kick it back to the board to discuss how you see the scope of your authority here.
I'm trying to pick the 5.1 apart to attach it to something other than building and structures. But I'm having trouble doing it just right there.
Right, what they mean by
5.1.
that language.
Unless in conformity with all of the regulations herein specified. Selling them, continuance of something that's already there, restoration.
Well, let's go to 122 first. And so it says a variance, unless otherwise provided, this ordinance, variances are obtained only for height, size, width, and setbacks. How do you, I mean, I understand there's other wording in here that maybe refers to variances, but how do we get through that? I don't see that 7.21, what talks about number of houses on a road that needs, what the road standards needs to be based on the number of houses, has anything to do with height, size, width, and setbacks. Am I missing something on another piece of this that's going to allow us to get past that?
So that the 10.4a, that first sentence opens up the whole book, unless otherwise provided in the ordinance. So the whole book, so anything in the book, unless otherwise provided somewhere in the book, in the ordinance. And he's picked out, or he's pointed out, what he stated here, to 5D1.
But it says, establish otherwise prohibited, cannot be obtained for the any uses otherwise prohibited. So I don't see how that, I mean, if it said we could look at those if they were prohibited, but it says variances cannot be obtained for any uses otherwise prohibited.
What page are you on?
22.
We're not asking for a use variance, though.
122?
The use is permitted, right? It's a single-family dwelling that they're seeking to build, so it's nothing about the use. We're not asking for, to build a factory there, which is not a permitted use in that.
Okay, so really that doesn't apply at all.
So that language doesn't apply at all.
Okay,
Yep.
good enough. So I'm just struggling to get by 10.4A on page 122.
Yep, so I'm looking at 2. And then it's unless otherwise provided in the ordinance. Well, so then if something else in the ordinance says that we can, which you're pulling out, we'll bring it up, 5D1.
Well, yeah, but what he's saying is that,
Yep.
this one, but it doesn't say otherwise prohibited. It does here, but that's a use. We're not talking about a use, so we're not even in B. So we're only in A.
Right.
And I don't see it says anything that gives us any flexibility from height, size, width, and setbacks.
Yeah.
And then you get over here, dimensional requirements are included, analysis, but not limited. Numerical standards relating to, I'm on 8 now. Numerical standards relating to spatial relationships, including but not limited to setback, lot area, shore frontage, and height, but not limited to. So that opens up some, but numerical. I mean, we're still talking numbers, right?
Right. Measurement.
I mean, 721
Numerical to spatial relationships. So
doesn't have any numbers in it other than the number of homes, not dimensions. So I'm still struggling to how we can get there. will admit that. But these aren't known.
Are you,
Sorry, Pat.
I'm looking at D1. Is that?
Yes, on
Is that
31.
D1?
Yep,
Page
do you want to make it?
31?
Yes,
Yep.
Yep.
yeah. So,
But-
however, all other dimensional standards of this ordinance shall be met unless a variance is obtained from the Board of Appeal.
But
Dimensional standards, the dimensional standards are those height, the standards in this, I don't see where it allows us to do anything with
Access.
the other piece that I'm struggling with is, that is under non-conforming lots of record. We have conforming lots of record. And the non-conforming lot of record says a lot shown on a recorded plan or deed which does not meet the area, frontage, width, depth requirements of the district in which it is located and was in lawful existence at the time this ordinance or subsequent amendments took effect. That's the definition of a non-conforming lot. We have lots that meet the dimensional requirements. So we're not even in a non-conforming lot unless we want to go in that it can't meet other standards, which makes it a non-conforming lot, but that's not what the definition in this ordinance says. It doesn't talk about anything else. It just says non-conforming size, essentially. That's what a definition of a non-conforming lot is. So we can't even get into D. We're not a non-conforming lot. So I don't know why we need to look at a variance request because it's not non-conforming. So I'm still back to page 22 and 10.4A.
122.
122.
Did I say 22? Sorry, Pat.
Yeah, I don't see, if you look at what we're allowed to do, if you even, I don't know if this Board of Appeals manual from MMA has anything to do with anything. But, they say what, we're only allowed to look at dimensional requirements for variances.
So I will say the MMA handbook is a useful reference tool. MMA, I think, correctly points in its variance chapter, which even for my own review, before I walked in today, I reread that chapter because it's helpful background info. MMA correctly notes in their own variance chapter that the board has to begin with what its own ordinances allow, and state statute, conforms with that. There are, the standards you have for a hardship variance come from state statute. State statute says, these are the standards, but towns can impose additional requirements or additional limitations on variances if they're contained in their ordinances, right? So it all comes back to the interpretive question that you're dealing with right now, which is what does your ordinance allow? I think you're in good company with MMA in looking at the language that you're looking at right now to determine the scope of your authority here.
Is there any other connections or like dots that you can connect for me, Mr. Savisky? Like, so 10, 4, 5, sorry, where do you go? The 1D is the one, but it's for non-conforming lots. In the beginning, is there additional, is there another dot to connect maybe for, another point to be made or a dot to connect per se, for information for us or
it's
something
interesting.
to work with?
It's interesting that the town attorney's memorandum, you have asked whether the access to lots requirement apply to legally non-conforming lots of record. I don't know any, because you're right. The two lots in question actually meet the other dimensional standards.
Right.
But those lots were created in 1987 prior to this access to lots requirement coming into the ordinance. So the manner in which the town is interpreting section 7.21 to apply is like in effect the same as a dimensional standard.
Well, I think he makes it clear that your frontage and your access are two separate standards. So we've got conforming lots of record, not legally non-conforming lots of record. And no matter when the access rules were put in, you still have to follow, you still have to have legal access. And the legal access now is that you have to have the road upgraded in order to have legal access to the lots. I mean, you can't just ignore the fact that that's the law now.
Right. The law that
Am
was.
I missing something?
No.
No.
The access to lots requirement came into effect after these lots were
Yes,
created. So
right. But that doesn't mean you don't follow them. That doesn't mean you don't follow them. If you have, let's say they find out.
unless you get a variance.
What's that?
Unless you get a variance.
Okay.
But I understand
I
there's
don't-
some question as to whether or not you can grant that relief under these
Yeah, I mean,
circumstances.
we can't do a variance
And I sense that you disagree, so.
for that. And, whenever a new standard gets put into our ordinance, it does have to be followed. Things can be grandfathered, but it doesn't mean that they can do everything illegally. And then when they come to a Board of Appeals, you can only get a variance for specific reasons, and access isn't one of them.
I'm kind of in that position myself. Like I say, I get right to 10.4A. I know we go back to this is the way we've always done it in the past, and that doesn't make it always right, but I think.
Well, that's different than this. This, we are not allowed to do it have a variance except for this.
Right, that's the way it's always been. I guess that's the way it's always been.
It's not the way it's always been done,
Well, that's the way it's I clarify, it's always been interpreted to be that. That's when you can have a variance, is under those conditions, and only those conditions, I
Right.
believe.
And only those
Again, I didn't
conditions.
speak appropriately, which you caught me on, but I'm saying that's what we followed in the past. Is that's when we've granted variances only for that in this particular
Right, and
situation.
that's because that's what it tells us to do.
Well,
There isn't much room for interpretation here, as far as, what we can,
Modify.
we can't
or
even
accept.
modify your side, there are certain parts of this that we can't provide a variance on, and certain ones that you can. So I think it's very specific.
I agree.
But when it comes to access, I mean, granted, I just don't know what else, I'm not very good at coming up with other things.
Something.
Like, let's say if it was decided, or it was put into effect that you had to have a street light now there, or something. And that
Today,
and that
yeah.
was part of the ordinance, stupid as it would be for the situation, but it doesn't mean that you can not have the street light just because the lot was made earlier. And because we don't have control over the street lights, we can't say anything about it. To me, that's kind of a simplistic point of view, but I don't know, can't think of something more appropriate at the moment.
I was kind of just point blankly ask our representation: do we have the power to grant variances to access?
So
Is that something that we could do?
you are, and I hate to punt. It is the board's determination of its own jurisdiction. I'm here to advise you, and I know the so. I think I've been a little bit more active in this discussion because part of this discussion is based around a prior memorandum that my office provided. So
And you're representing him now.
providing input as to what the intent of that was when it was provided, I think is relevant to the questions that were being asked. Ultimately, I think I think the board is looking at the right ordinance provisions here. I think Attorney Savitsky has pointed out language in other parts of the ordinance that, in his and his client's view, would empower this board to hear a variance appeal in the way that he has framed it up. I think the board's the question before you is whether you agree with that interpretation, or whether you have a different view on that interpretation. But I think that is the nub of the question, and that's for you guys.
Can I speak to the memo?
Yeah,
Can I borrow the-
Oh, were you gonna? The podium or the
Yeah, the
the
podium.
computer? Yeah.
No, the computer. So I was the one that asked for the memo, so I talked to Mr. Saucier, so I have some clarification on it. This was in the context of, and maybe I asked the question wrong, but it was getting at the core of, does section 7.21 apply to a lot that was in existence before the ordinance? And what this memo is saying is yes. It is reasonable to interpret that the section as applying. And then in that same paragraph, the last sentence, further, the access to lot requirements are separate from the frontage requirements as outlined below. So that's the second paragraph. So he's not saying that in the second paragraph. He's referencing and pointing out the delineation between access and frontage, which frontage is a dimensional requirement. And then just the last sentence, the last paragraph, in other words, frontage and access are two separate standards that it must be met. And I talked to Phil when I was asking him the question, and from my conversation with him, my understanding is that his opinion was clearly saying that access is not a dimensional requirement.
And I would just note for the board again, notwithstanding any of that, the interpretive question here is yours. So even if your counsel provides you an interpretation,
we're an independent board.
that's right. It's your job to reach those conclusions yourselves, and
Are you still feeling like, is there a piece of this that you're feeling uncomfortable about?
No, in reading it, I'm trying to.
Yeah.
I don't see anything. I'm not finding anything that would make me comfortable saying that I can, I can grant variances on access. I still feel, and look, even with the additional stuff that was pointed out, which is good, I still feel tied to, more general dimension, like setbacks and heights and some frontage. I don't think something that like a drastic. The access requirement can be swayed that far from, which I don't like it. I don't think by my powers listed here that I can do it. I don't feel comfortable to do it. So.
We've somewhat reached a conclusion, haven't we?
So, and I would just, I would ask the question, just to put a finer point on it. Do the members view the standard contained in section 7.21 as a dimensional standard?
No, I see it as an access standard. I think it's separate. It's separate.
Yes or no?
Yes
I
or
don't
no.
think it's not
No.
a dimensional
Yeah.
standard.
Yes.
I agree.
Is that the consensus of the board?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. just wanted to make sure I had where the board sat on that question clear in my mind here. So the question before you is whether or not the board has jurisdiction to hear this variance. You have to, so as a threshold question, the board needs to have jurisdiction. Your jurisdiction flows from your ordinance. And so at this point, you're going to have to decide whether or not you do. Given where the rest of these appeals are and the timing, if the board is at a place where you feel you have reached, you've all reached a consensus, or if you individually have reached a decision for yourselves, you can take a vote tonight. That again would trigger the requirement for the 7-day run of a written decision. I would work under those constraints to the extent required. But if the board is prepared to vote, you can do so. And I'll leave it there.
I think I'll put a motion on the table, and then if we get a second, we go, and then we can discuss it. But I move that the appeal for a variance does not meet the guidance of 10.4A in the ordinance. So we cannot hear the appeal. Variance says, 10.4A says we have to make standards, meet dimensional requirements. I don't think that the appeal that's been presented to us meets 10.4A.
Would we have to amend it and say that we believe, that we feel that the 7.21 is access standards, not dimensional standards? Does that have to be put in there or not?
So if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go for it.
I think the question before the board is whether or not you have jurisdiction.
Right.
And
I don't think we do in accordance with 10.4A.
so if you're framing up a motion on the question, I would frame it around the question of whether the board has jurisdiction to hear the variance appeal.
I make a motion that the board doesn't have the authority to hear the variance request based on 10.4A.
Can you get a second?
Guess not. Have another motion.
Sure. Second it.
Okay. Do we need any more clarification on that? We can amend the motion if we think it needs to be amended, but basically, don't think we have the authority to hear this appeal. We don't have the jurisdiction. 10.4A to me clearly gives us the
So if you
jurisdiction.
agree that we don't have jurisdiction, then we're voting yes? Or, I just want to make sure.
Oh, I see what you're
the right way.
The motion was framed,
Right.
yeah, you're correct, Pat. The motion was framed that a motion to determine that the board does not have jurisdiction over the appeal.
Okay. So, do we vote?
All in favor? Saying that would be yes, we do not have jurisdiction. Okay? Sorry,
I just want to make sure.
no, I appreciate that, because
So, and just to ensure that procedurally that will result in
Denial.
a denial of the appeal or a dismissal of the appeal.
Right.
So I would recommend that
we make a motion
based on that vote, the board take a motion
to deny.
the request for a variance.
So move.
Denying and dismiss be the same thing? Or dismissing is kind of different?
They do mean
You would hear it and you
slightly
would deny or
different
approve.
things. So
and when you dismiss it, we're not allowed to hear it.
I think either would be appropriate here, but you can frame the motion
I would go with dismiss.
I would too.
I concur. So,
Can we all be
make a motion to dismiss the appeal on the basis that the board does not have the authority to hear it.
I second it.
All in favor?
Okay. Now, last step, like last time, would be to authorize me to prepare a draft decision for the board's review at the next meeting, reflecting the board's discussion prior to your vote.
All in favor of him doing so?
He moved, I
Yes.
second.
Excellent. I have my homework.
I need a motion to adjourn. Pat makes a motion.
Second.
All in favor? Ernie, you in favor of adjourning? All right,
Thanks for working late tonight.
thank you.